My name is Vishnu Menon, and this is day 5 of the No Distractions Challenge. And as you can probably tell and hear, I'm still sick. This is probably the longest I've been sick for in years. In years. It must have been all the bad eating and the sugars and processed foods the weeks leading up to this challenge that weakened my immune system. And my body's just purging it all out at this point. But yeah, am I feeling any compulsion to go towards the distractions? And just to rehash, what is this challenge? Is I I'm not partaking in any video games, any uh, TV, any Netflix, any processed foods, anything that would potentially bring me away from directed and sequential thought process, um, an ability to develop ideas and thoughts in a way that is beneficial to me and beneficial to my belief system. I realize that a lot of the these things are traps set up so that people have interruptions and great thought processes about their life. So how do I feel on day 5? I feel good aside from my sickness. I feel clear relatively. I do have a little bit of cravings here and there, and to be transparent, I find myself going towards scrolling for like a minute or two, and then I catch myself, oh, I'm on Facebook scrolling. Like I should not be doing this. So there's still like a knee jerk reaction to distract myself here and there, especially when the clarity is extremely when it's dying down, not strong. When it's strong, I feel completely one with life. I'm very present to my surroundings. I'm very present to the workings of my mind. So yeah, I guess one thing that I did want to talk about, aside from the minor distractions that I've overcome yesterday, is people's inability to control their thought process, people's inability to control their thought. And I'll use an example. So I made a TikTok, I want to say a month ago or 3 weeks ago, and this woman who unfollowed me when I started my journey and then recently followed me because my only assumption is that my account's been picking up a little bit more steam. Nothing significant, but it has been picking up a little bit more steam, a little bit more traction. She had commented on this video, and the context of the video is me speaking about my ex girlfriend and how there's nothing like having the support of a woman when you're on the road of ambition, and that the woman will that is supportive will allow you to remember who you are in times of you being low. And it was a video made purely from my perspective because my ex girlfriend did an amazing job of that, of reaffirming who I was when I did not feel up to par. When I forgot, and this girl, not my ex, the girl that commented on the video and followed me back later, she had commented. She had commented. Um, oh, what was the exact comment? She had commented, "Oh yeah, that's basically insinuating that that's all a woman is to support a man." She said, "Just be there for them and just be there." So some comment in that form, and I had noticed that, and I commented back saying, this is from my perspective. It goes both ways. I supported my ex girlfriend as well. Maybe not always as best as I could, but I wanted her to pursue her dreams. I wanted her to pursue what she wanted. I wanted her to pursue what made her feel most free. Even the decisions that she made that I didn't agree with, like it still comes from I'm not in her shoes every day. I'm not in her shoes, and so I can't really understand. Sometimes I might not have agreed, but I try to respect her decisions. And yeah, so this girl commented that, and I realized that she didn't process the information. She didn't necessarily process the information because in no way did I indicate that it is a woman's role to do this. So it's almost like a subtle poke at what she believes to be my misogyny. So her inability to see me for more than see me for who I am. Not that she has to know who I am, but see me as a completely new piece of data. Instead, she chooses to uh, grab onto some previous model or understanding of men that she has, and and use that because it goes to, there is a if you're familiar with Daniel Kahneman, he mentions there's two types of thinking. There's the Gator and there's the judge. So what the Gator will do is it won't, like if you put a piece of food out in front of the Gator, it takes a lot of effort for this Gator to move. So it I mean, most people these days are in that Gator mentality because it's less effort. It's more like you can kind of um, place your bandwidth towards other things that are, I don't know, you find more useful. In essence, when you're using the judge and when you're using the Gator for everyday experiences, it makes it so that you're not actually learning from every day. You're just going into your reactivity based emotion. And I understand that we're emotional beings, but we should be learning first, because when we just write things off or come to a conclusion because of some emotion that has been invoked in us from the past, we cut ourselves off from the potentiality to actually learn. So that's what happened in this situation with this girl. She commented that, kind of poking at some sort of misogyny, which I'm not, like, I completely respected my girlfriend's decisions. I wanted her to do extremely well as I did. I'm not on the camp of the woman is there to, the role to serve the man, and I was only speaking from purely from my perspective in this situation. And I find this, aside from her, I find this to be very apparent within 95% of people. I feel like people they lack the energy because of these distractions, because of these attention hijackers, because of they've essentially given up the ability to use the judge. And when you're in a state of meditation, you're in a state of, when you're meditating regularly, you're eating clean, you're practicing self-control, you're doing these things that are good for you, you're lowering your anxiety. That is when you can start to use the judge more often. Now you're actually processing what someone is saying, and you're not just reverting to a previous model. Because at the end of the day, it's not that, like, there should be a difference, because the judge, it's funny, the Gator judges more. If you the way that in modern day how people view each other, they judge or write each other off in a moment's notice, and it sounds like the judge actually discerns more, because it's actually evaluating the information. So those two lines of thinking are quite interesting to me, and the way that I see this thought process as a whole is that she starts watching the video, and then immediately her brain has a thought like that she can't really control, and now the rest of the video is painted in that lens. It's a perfect way to put it is, think of, you're watching a movie and you see that the beginning of the movie, it's two like there's a couple holding hands walking down the street. All right, now your brain is like, oh, so this is a romance movie. All right, now in actuality the movie's intended to be a thriller. So then you have not left that mentality that this is a romance movie. So you watch the entire movie with the belief that it's a romance movie, but it's not. So then you're like, man, this is a terrible movie. This movie sucks. But it could have been a 9.5 or 9.9 movie, rated movie on IMDb, but it's because you only saw it as a romance movie. You judged it right from the beginning. And your brain only picked up on the evidence that you wanted to see. It is literally that idea of confirmation bias. This same thing happens with therapists. Even therapists are not they're not safe from this concept. I mean, a lot of books will talk about how specifically 12 Rules of Life does this, from what I remember, is that therapists have cognitive bias as well. They're not unbiased. Once they mentally diagnose their patient with something, now they want to be right. Like, people just want to be right. They don't care about truth. They want to be right. They want to, like, feel like they're doing something right. They want to feel like they're thinking something right. They are met with this constant insanity, in the form of attention hijacking, in the form of lack of self-control, in the form of going into pleasure so much that it weakens their sense of self, and they want to be right about something, even if it means that like, it's an illusion of being right. It's not actually processing the information. Like, this fuck listening to what the person has to say, actually. Like, as long as I'm right, that's all that matters. So, I mean, therapists do this too. They will diagnose someone in their mind, and at that point it becomes an ego game. So it truly comes down to ego versus truth. Ego and truth they're not going to be sitting at the same table. Ego is a fear-based mechanism. It's a mechanism where it's someone telling, kind of like rehearsing to themselves who they are, as opposed to truth, where you're actually navigating life and you're gaining information from your surroundings. Yeah, I know that a lot of this can sound like beautified theory, like how do you apply it to life, but these are just observations that I have. So yeah, that confirmation bias, and this all comes down to the inability to control your thinking. It all comes down to her not being able to, like, observe the fact that she had that thought about this, my video, and not allow it to define. Because a rational and logical person, what they would say is, hey, okay, I have this thought. It seems relatively similar to something else that I've experienced in my life, but it is not it is not a one-to-one situation. So I'm still going to keep open. I'm going to form a separate network. I'm not going to tack it onto a previous network out of neural inefficiency. I'm going to build a whole different concept out of this. And regardless, and if I find it useful, previous information, great. But I'm going to listen and process and intake any information, all the information they have, and that way I have the best picture of this. I have the best ability to make an evaluation on what this person is saying and group it into whatever information I want. Whereas, majority of people, since they're lacking this energy, they're lacking this ability to use their mind without judging and trying to control the narrative of the situation for their own ego. They're only experiencing like 10-20% of life, it's what they want to hear. People hear what they want to hear. People see what they want to see. I find that relatively interesting. I think the best place to be is to be completely present. And the way to do that is to reduce the noise of the mind. And the way to do that is by practicing self-control. If you have great self-control, you have a big reduction in anxiety. If you're not pursuing pleasure, mindless pleasure, then it is more likely that you will be able to think clearly. Your brain will not, your subconscious is not filled with the betrayals that you had, because a lot of the things, everything that we consume, everything that we see, everything that we write, everything that we view, every person we talk to sits in our subconscious at some end. It gets cleared out, like, short term, but so that's why it is possible to change, but it really depends. What are you consuming in your subconscious, and how are you consciously reacting, or how are you unconsciously reacting? But it's all kind of rotating up there, right? So if you're betraying yourself all the time, then your psyche knows that, and it's in the back of your mind. There's like a little whisper, like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that can cause anxiety, almost like a nervous system contraction, that runs out when that leaks out to your further interactions, that leaks out to your further decision making. So yeah, a lot of it is, can you control that? Like, can you observe that thought? Can you be present? Can you clean the noise of the mind? Because once you clean the noise of the mind, your intuition is much higher. Once your intuition is much higher, you will find yourself making better decisions. You'll find yourself feeling more calm. You'll find yourself reading situations a lot better, not just like your your interactions, but you'll find yourself being in the right places more often. You will find yourself living a better life if your intuition is working, because your body has a sort of intelligence that your mind can't comprehend, and your mind is completely rooted on that ego of trying to tell you who you are, or trying to reassert your story constantly to yourself and other people. And the mind only really does that at a very heavy sound level, or like heavy volume, when you're betraying yourself, when you're not practicing self-control. And I might as well actually talk about this too, is that I gained a perception of something with like that, something that they call the ether, after my awakening. I want to say like a year and a half ago. The ether, or infinite intelligence, is a very real thing. It is this idea that there's a body of information that every person can access. Every person has the ability to access, and you can look at I think it's Niels Bohr, the one that created the anatomy of the atom. He dreamt that up. He literally slept and he made that anatomy of the atom. You have like guys like Thomas Edison, who sat around and literally was like, I want to learn how to create I want to create the light bulb. And tried many times, and there's a book even about how he would just sit and focus his imagination on this. So the imagination is kind of like an accessing to this ether, and I can personally tell you that this ether is a very real thing. It is a very, very fucking real thing. Because I remember accessing like all sorts of information, like about love, fear, power games, hierarchies, survival mechanisms, and like how neurochemistry affects us, how fear degrades our mind, body, brain, why people look older than they look, why people treat the way each other the way they do, society's fear-based programming, like all topics that would probably render me crazy in the conventional person's eyes, but yeah, the ether is extremely it is extremely real, but you would have to clean the mind of the noise of the mind, and I did that through several mental fortitude exercises. I did that through meditation. I did that through practicing love and compassion towards others after reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I did that by feeding my mind through reading books, pursuing a purpose that was aligned with what I wanted to do. And you might not know that yet. And even I still have, you know, I struggle with understanding my purpose fully, but yeah, so it's very real. Like I learned those ideas of, and I would go read a book of someone else who was awakened, and man, it seems like this shit is like a starter pack, because they would be talking about cortisol, they would talk about breath, they would talk about things that like things that I had tried to learn myself. Like I remember one of the biggest learnings that I had from so-called ether was that when the first humans were here together, it was never like power and status never came down to skill, but it came down to intelligence. And the way to access and to really truly be intelligent was to be present and perceptive of your surroundings. Whereas if you, and the idea is that if you're in fear, so that releases an overproduction of cortisol within your brain and your body, and your cells begin to operate at like 30% efficiency. That's just an arbitrary number, but you get what I mean. It will degrade your brain, because it's almost like a supercharging of your system, like a jolt to your system to get you to survive a situation. So if the first humans could make other humans feel fear, then they would win over them. That is why it's literally Alexander the Great was a 16-year-old that went and conquered many, many nations. Like, he was not the biggest. He was not the most best. I don't know. Maybe he was the most best looking. I don't know about that. But I guess money does get you looks. But they didn't have as many cosmetic procedures back in the day. So who knows? But yeah, a lot of it came down to being fearless. Because if you were in fear, that would put you lower in the hierarchy, because you were hesitant to make decisions and act, or be. It would make it so that your brain could not function. And humans can sense that weakness, and they ascend the people that are the most fearless to the top of the hierarchy. Because the people that are the most fearless are the ones that are not hesitant to make decisions, and they think rationally in difficult situations. And that is more important than brute strength and power. So yeah, I remember thinking that fear was a very that was like the most basic like unit of control, like between people. You know, the first people realized, like, if I can make this person fear, so through some sort of emotional, like, it feels like Neanderthals, like, you know, waving their arms around, making the other person fear, then I can beat them, you know. And that same law has like worked over time and been evolved into sort of the things that we have today, big sort of fear-based devices of control. Yeah, I know that was a lot, but yeah, the ether is completely real. I mean, I learned about Nietzsche's idea of individualism, and his concept of the overman. These are concepts that I randomly just thought up because my mind was clean and clear. And then I would go read it in a book by Nietzsche, or like, not a book, like at that time I had watched a YouTube video after, and it was the exact same thing that I had just developed, that idea that I just developed. And I literally, like, word for word almost. So I'm assuming, I am under the assumption that all people can access this sort of intelligence, but there's just too much noise in the world. There's too much noise. There's too much distractions. So I'm doing this challenge. There's not a capability to develop ideas and access, because there is this concept that I am very much in the belief of, and anyone can tell me that I am that I'm crazy, but I don't care, because I've experienced it and I know the efficiency and value of what this is that whenever people think ideas that are highly developmental, I'm under the belief that it adds to this so-called ether. And you'll find a lot of other accounts of things like this, especially the people that will probably ostracize me or call me crazy are the ones that are not reading or actually educating themselves. They're going down the same traditional path that has been laid out before them without any sort of original thinking or any personal development or understanding of who they are. So, I will take any judgment or any criticisms like that with a grain of salt. It comes from, like Marcus Aurelius says, why would you, he doesn't say this, but I guess I extrapolated it from what he says. Why would you give a shit about what an irrational mind thinks? Thank you.